When you look up Savage Spider-Man, you'll most likely, if not only, find the story of 2022's Savage Spider-Man written by Joe Kelly. But what if I told you that there was another version of the character that held this Savage title? Today, we're going over a character and concept that I think is probably one of the most intriguing and interesting things I've ever seen introduced in the Spider-Verse, and something that I believe should be much more explored than what we got. The story starts off with the Master Weaver looking over the Spider-Verse and stating that they are at war, while speaking to a picture of Billy Braddock, also known as Spider UK. And this war is something that they can't win. It seems like he's lost hope until he states that a war that cannot be won is not the same as a war that cannot be fought, and a war cannot be fought without an army. Which is when we see him begin to look through the web of life to find warriors for this said army. Now within this book, we're introduced to a few spiders throughout the Spider-Verse, such as the Web Slinger, who got his abilities from a miracle elixir, Takuya Yamashiro, also known as Japanese Spider-Man, who we see fight a dictator in the form of Prime Minister Monster, formerly known as Professor Monster, as well as Spider-Bite, a version of the hero who stops crime within the internet. But today, I wanted to talk about someone introduced in this book that interested me the most out of all these variants, and that is the Savage Spider-Man.
I am the stone that the builder refused. I am the visual, the inspiration that made ladies sing the blues. I'm the spark that makes you.
But before we do that, I'd like to go over the origins of the Savage Lands. 2 million years ago, the extra-dimensional race known as the Beyonders contacted an alien race known as the Nawali, offering to pay them to create planetary game preserves on various planets. The Nawali agreed, stocking the land with earthly fauna, most notably dinosaurs, creating and augmenting the land's volcanoes in order to maintain the tropical status of the area. We start off somewhere within the Savage Lands. This world's version of Winston Fisk is admiring the sight of nature, which is taking its course as a Triceratops is being hunted by a carnivorous theropod. Just then, right as the herbivore is taken down by its hunter, the hunter is then hunted and shot down by Fisk. But meanwhile, swinging through the trees and leaping off the backs of dinosaurs is the Savage Spider-Man, who had felt the violence within the web of life as both of the prehistoric creatures were suddenly killed. This is when we get this Peter's backstory. He was involved in a plane crash, and with his parents giving him the only parachute they had, he was sent out of the plane and floated down into the Savage Lands. After landing in a spider's nest, he was claimed by the native arachnids, who had bitten him 1,000 times and would stop just before he could die, letting his body heal and his senses to grow, only to continue to inject them with their poison again and again, repeating this cycle for years until he was strong enough to be the protector of their land. We're then shown that the mysterious figure who is hunting alongside Fisk is Kevin Plunder, also known as Kazar, who in any other universe would usually be protecting the Savage Lands, so this is a nice little twist. He's even wearing Zabu's pelt as not only his vest, but basically his entire outfit, using the claws as a type of wrist guard thing. I don't really know what you call that, but I'm also not sure what's going on with the other paw he's got, using it as some type of loincloth. Do you really need that there? Like, even if you're wearing pants? Also, why put it there and leave the claw still attached? That just seems like a disaster waiting to happen. Like, one wrong move and his coconuts are gone. But Kazar and Fisk run into a trap set by Spider-Man, which is when they eventually cross paths with him. When Fisk and Spider-Man meet, it's revealed that not only are the legends of the Savage Spider-Man true, but it's also revealed that Fisk knows the Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Instead of dropping their son off with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben, Richard and Mary Parker brought Peter along with them on their investigation, in which they were offered a plane by Fisk, but was set up with their deaths being covered up. But after he heard of Spider-Man protecting the Savage Lands, he set out to cut this loose thread that was Peter Parker. While Fisk left Spider-Man to be dealt with by his men, Spider-Man called upon the spiders of the Savage Land, who then killed the ambushers as well as Fisk, with Spider-Man swinging away. Now, I love the concept of the Savage Lands, and I love when Spider-Man is thrusted into these jungle-like environments, just because I feel like that's pretty much the perfect environment for him. And on a totally unrelated yet still related note, when I found out that during the production of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, they were going to explore the Savage Lands, that not only intrigued me, but back then was the trigger that helped me get into the Savage Lands and discover what exactly it was and how it fit into the overall Marvel universe. The film looked to be directed by Drew Goddard and would have taken place between The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and 3, although other sources state that it was intended to come out after the third film. Goddard wanted to celebrate the bad guys, being inspired by films such as The Magnificent Seven and Dirty Dozen, with the version of the film having Norman Osborn return from the dead thanks to a sample of Peter's blood. I say I think because not a lot is known about this movie, at least not to the public. What is known is the small information on the early versions of the film, like how Spider-Man would have joined the Sinister Six, whose team would consist of Dr. Octopus, Black Cat, Sandman, Mysterio, and Vulture, with Spider-Man acting as the sixth member. He'd aid them in a mission into the Savage Lands, where they go up against either Gog or the Carnage symbiote. I say either because these two ideas were pitches for the movie villain that are known. Again, there's not a lot about this movie online. At some point there's a plan for Spider-Man to wear the black symbiote suit during the film, which was originally intended to appear in a jar at the end of the second Amazing Spider-Man movie, within that sub-level of Oscorp where you see all the villain equipment. Now that sounds like a lot, but I mean, it is a lot. But of course it would have went through multiple drafts before getting the final draft, and even with that final draft, some things are still changed during the filming process. So who knows if it would have been too much to chew on. But that's my favorite thing about the webverse. No matter how you look at it, there's just so much potential and mystery within that universe. You gotta admit that a movie focusing on Spider-Man teaming up with his rogues gallery will be interesting at the very least. Some of the best villains in the Marvel Universe are Spider-Man villains, and some of the best interactions Spider-Man has had are with his villains. When I started to make this video, the original intent was to just talk about the Savage Spider-Man simply because I couldn't find any videos on the character, and I'd never even seen him before or be mentioned. Basically, no one made a video about him, so I decided that I would. But I didn't want to just make a 3 or 5 minute video about a character's origin, so while writing that, I remember watching a video on the cancelled TASM sequels, with one of them taking place in the Savage Lands, and that's where I decided, well, why not go over the backstory of the Savage Land? Basically, I combined 3 videos that wouldn't normally be as long if they were one video into one Savage video. But thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you want, and I'll see you when I see you.